Welcome back into the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast, week number 12, segment number 2, with our two-hole hitter, Matt Josephs from ESPN Richmond at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter. Matt, welcome on in, bud. How you feeling?
Feeling good. We got a win last week for our best bet. Eastern Michigan came through. They were the better team. They took care of business at home. We have Eastern Michigan again in our section, which I love. We'll see if they're the selection again this week.
The great turf. That's what I know about Eastern Michigan. Maction, Tuesday, Wednesday night. Are you involved in that usually, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very disappointed in Buffalo. Buffalo has been a massive disappointment. I lost the win total officially on them last night. The turnovers, just the underperforming, losing to Akron, losing to Troy. Like, it was just a miserable season, and they were a massive disappointment in my mind.
I was against you. I was on the Chippewas. One thing I don't like about Buffalo is they started out the season they looked strong, like they might be the best team in the MAC. And then they really fell off. And watching them play, their quarterback, Robertson, the transfer from Penn State, he struggles throwing the football, man. Like just the accuracy.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, I was on Central Michigan last night just as an emotional hedge to because I knew that if Buffalo lost, I was going to lose my win total. So I was like, all right, let me just take Central Michigan just in case. And obviously it won. But he's got two great wide receivers. Victor Snow is such an underrated wide receiver in this country. And Nick McMillan is another guy who's really good. And you see why he's been at 5 schools, Roberson? 4 schools so far? Yeah. He's got talent, but it's just not very consistent.
Right. Well, hopefully everybody out there had a good Maction as we're recording this on Thursday afternoon in the 1 o'clock Eastern hour. And if you're new to Every Game on the Board, we go down each and every game. This is segment 2 of 3. We had Jeff Nadeau for the first one. We'll have Robbie Vino for the next one. And this is 3-5-1, 3-5-2, the rotation number. It's Notre Dame versus Pittsburgh. And then we're going to hit about 15 games here with Mid-Major Matt. So first game up for the segment, Matt. This is kicking us off on Saturday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern in the Steel City. It is the Irish, minus 11.5 to as high as minus 12.5 as the road favorite, 54 being the total. So it's Notre Dame at Pitt. Interesting handicap here early on Saturday.
Yeah, and one thing that we're going to have a lot of in this segment is rain and wind. And we've talked about how much of a factor that is because it changes game plans a little bit. And this arguably is one of the most fascinating games of Saturday because you have Coach Narduzzi, who came out early in the week and said, this game means nothing to us. We have 2 more games left in the ACC. We can win an ACC championship. We can make the ACC title game. He essentially said we could lose this game 10-3 or we could lose this game 110-10. We don't care because this game doesn't matter as much. Now, I'm going to take part of it at face value. I think there's a chance, Drew, that they don't show everything. They almost treat this as a preseason type game. There's also the part of me that says you're playing Notre Dame at home. College game day is there. You don't want to get embarrassed. You don't want to play badly in that game. But he's right. This is a team that has larger goals in mind. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, which means I think they're going to go in and give it their best shot. But I have a feeling third quarter, fourth quarter, it's not going well. You might see them take out the freshman quarterback, might, pull back the play calling a little bit. That's the kind of interesting thing here because on face value, Drew, I love Pittsburgh plus the points, but I can't take them right now because the coach has set a tone this week of yeah, it's Notre Dame. Yeah, it's great. But we have things that are more important coming up these last 2 weeks of the season because we can make the ACC title game and we can win the ACC championship.
That's a great breakdown, Matt. I mean, usually press clippings on sides, they're just very hard to find. They don't come into the handicap very much. I use press clippings, what coaches say more for totals. We're looking to go up tempo. But this is a unique situation where you're right, man. I mean, the head coach is pretty much that, that's a pretty negative comment. If you're looking to bet on Pitt, I wouldn't say that that's positive towards your bet. So the uniqueness of it would really make me not want to bet Pitt in this situation.
Or if you do, be ready to pull out as fast as possible. I think they're going to give it really good effort. I think first half, it's going to be close. I think Pitt has the talent to stay in this game if they're properly motivated. The problem is if this thing gets ugly, it's going to get ugly because Narduzzi's going to pull guys and he's going to not show anything because he's got Georgia Tech next week on the road. That is a huge game for the conference standings, for everything that they want to do. And if you ask the Pitt players, I think winning an ACC championship and making the title game is a lot more important than beating Notre Dame on a random Saturday, even with College Game Day there, which makes it even weirder that College Game Day is there because of the fact that, this could be a bad game potentially.
Yeah, I mean, College Game Day throws a little wrench into it too because Pitt, they play in the Steelers' home field. Sometimes it's just not very filled, but you would think for this Saturday with Game Day there'd be a pretty good atmosphere. So yeah, a lot of kind of cross currents in this handicap. We'll move down the list. ACC matchup, North Carolina and Wake Forest. I feel like there should be a rivalry name with this one. I don't know it off the top of my head. 4:30 Eastern kick. Wake is -6.5 as the home favorite. Man, we got a 38.5 as a total here, Matt. So we get the Demon Deacons hosting the Tar Heels.
Yeah, it doesn't look like this game has a name because I just looked it up. It doesn't look like there's a name, but they've been playing since 1888 in football. So it's been a while in this series. And look, I think the low total here is for a reason. And by the way, wind once again could be a factor in this game. You look at Wake Forest, they get the win at UVA. They didn't get any offensive touchdowns. Their offense is pretty underwhelming at times. I mean, Robbie Ashford, as we've talked about in the past, because we've had Wake Forest, Robbie Ashford makes some very good plays and he makes some not so good plays. They have Claiborne, the running back, and Chris Barnes, the wide receiver, but it's not an explosive offense to say the least. And the one thing you could say about North Carolina is their defense has been pretty good this year. They looked really good last week against Stanford. Have they kind of turned the corner now? We're not seeing the Bill Belichick is terrible. We're not doing the fire Bill Belichick thing anymore. They've won 2 straight, so they're playing pretty well right now. And so I wonder if they keep doing that. Is UNC a decent bet in this game? I think it's definitely a lower scoring game to say the least. I think, I see Wake's team totals 22.5. I kind of like the under there. I think North Carolina's defense can do the job here. But I think the reason why this has a 38.5 total or 38-ish total is because these offenses are just pretty underwhelming. Wake Forest's defense is really good.
Yeah, Wake Forest their defense is very good. I agree with your comments on Ashford. They're just one of those teams for me, Matt. When I bet on them, they lose. When I fade them, they win. And I've kind of written them off for the 2025 portion anyway. All right, we got Saturday Maction up next. Eastern Michigan, the team we talked about at the top, versus Ball State. It is Eastern Michigan -2 and a hook as the road favorite, 50.5 being the total. I've seen both of these two teams play a bunch. I think it will be a competitive matchup. The odds makers are telling us that. Are you liking anything here in Muncie, Indiana, I believe? So
I can't, for people who follow this, I can't, Chris Creighton's a better underdog. We took him last week as a favorite and won. Road favorite, though, that's asking a lot. Now, for those who are new to the podcast, Eastern Michigan is one of 2 teams still perfect in the red zone. Every single time they've gotten in the red zone, they've scored. Touchdowns, field goals, safeties, whatever. Every time they've gotten in the red zone, they've scored. That's something you want when you're betting on a team. They also have only lost 1 fumble this season. They have something like 7 or 8 turnovers total, which is tremendous. The thing that's going to be interesting here is wind is a massive factor in this game. And Eastern Michigan has both the ground game and the air game. Noah Kim has been tremendous for Eastern Michigan so far. When you look at Ball State wants to run. I love Ashley, their running back. I think he's a tremendous running back. So I think the win conditions will be fine for them. Kyle Kelly is a guy that I kind of like too. He is, he's a guy that's very mobile, makes plays when he needs to, but I don't think they're going to mind that it's windy because they're already a team that's very ground-based as it is. I can't take Eastern Michigan as a favorite here. My lean is actually Ball State plus the points. I don't know if I'm going to get there yet on that. I might wait for a 3. We'll see. I don't know if any 3s are out there yet, but I lean to Ball State in this situation, especially in windy conditions.
Yeah, I do as well. I thought your point on his name's Kelly, their quarterback, right?
Kyle Kelly, yeah.
Yeah. He's a 5th-year senior, and he played wide receiver up until the end of last year. Just to put in, the listeners' heads, that's the type of player he is. I think he's really good, particularly in the MAC conference. I don't think wind will affect him that much at all. I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to to make some plays. So yeah, good breakdown there, Matt. As we go from Eastern Michigan and Ball State to Oklahoma and Alabama, 3:30 Eastern on ABC. It is Alabama -6 at home, 46 and a half being the total. So the Sooners heading to Tuscaloosa to take on what Alabama, I don't want to say what people call them because I went to Auburn.
So I was reading an article on one of the Alabama blogs about how Ty Simpson, he's had a really good year. I need him to be terrible because of my Mendoza Heisman ticket. But he struggles against the blitz, and Oklahoma likes the blitz a lot. And so that could be something to watch here, potentially. Now, our Mason Thomas Jr., who is Oklahoma's sack leader, is listed as questionable in the early participation reports. Now, Oklahoma's defense is more than just him, but that's very important potentially for their defense. Oklahoma's had 2 weeks to prepare, whereas Alabama's coming off of the easy breezy win over LSU last week. So this is something where I'm going to watch the participation reports as we get closer to this game, Drew. But I think Oklahoma's defense kind of matches up well in this situation. I think that they have some things that will make Alabama struggle a little bit. Now, on the other side of things, Oklahoma's offense was so good, and then Mateer gets hurt, and then he comes back too early, and it feels like he's still trying to work his way through the injury and stuff like that. But maybe with the extra week off, he gets a whole lot better. I kind of like the Alabama team total under here. It's 26 and a half, which makes it relatively easy to buy it up to 27 and a half. You get the nice, somewhat even number there. But I like Oklahoma in this situation. I think with the extra week to prepare, I think they can have some things defensively if Thomas Jr. is available, which he's questionable right now.
We got next game up, heading down the rotation, 359-360, 7 Eastern kick here. It is Delaware and Sam Houston State. Delaware, -9, -9.5 as the road favorite, 56 being the total. Sam Houston State does have a win on the year. Delaware off of a big win against Louisiana Tech last week, but having to go on the road, and they're essentially going to have to win by double digits to cash this ticket. What are you thinking here, Delaware and Sam Houston State?
Yeah, I had a live a bet on Delaware. I think they were down at halftime, but they were moving the ball better than Louisiana Tech was, so I put a bet on them at halftime. And boy, the end of the Delaware game was crazy because Delaware scored, got the onside kick, I think got a penalty to put them in field goal range, kicked the field goal to go ahead and win. The problem is... So my problem with Delaware is at some point, do they start losing energy and do they start losing steam? We talked about before, these new FBS programs, when you're in the FCS, you play one FBS team or two potentially, and you play your FCS teams and they're all on your level. Now you're starting to get to the situation where you're playing 8 or 9 FBS teams in a row and it's grind every single week and everything. Like at some point, does the bottom drop out on Delaware and they start getting tired because they're not used to this? Now, I don't know what Sam Houston's headspace is at. They get the win at Oregon State, really random road trip, obviously. So they feel good after a win. Sam Houston State's defense is terrible this year. So I don't know, but I can't lay that many points on the road with a new FBS team in a game they should win. Don't get me wrong. They should win this game, but I'm just not going to lay that many points with them on the road.
We got 1 o'clock Eastern for the next kick. I believe 12 local time. Oregon State at Tulsa. It is the Beavers -2 and a hook pretty much across the board as the road favorite. There is a -3 out there at DraftKings. 48.5 being the total in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Matt. So
I'm glad there's a 3. Because this may end up being my best bet. I'm not sure yet. We're still not done yet. But I like Tulsa in this game. Where's Oregon State's head at? They just lost to a winless Sam Houston team at home. It's a random road trip to Oklahoma for Oregon State. It's been a miserable season. They have a bye week, and then they play Washington State in the second game of their little, head-to-head. Tulsa's not great either. They don't do a lot of things. I do like their quarterback, Hayes. I think Hayes has been better than the original guy they put in there. I kind of like Tulsa in this situation. And if you're telling me there's a 3 out there, Tulsa +3, I think is a good one. This one also has some win potential. So certainly that's something to look out for here. But Oregon State doesn't do anything right. And they just lost a game at home to a winless team. And now they're playing a road trip. Sometimes, Drew, at the end of the season, I like fading teams that have no bowl hopes, that have nothing. And I know Tulsa doesn't really either, but they're home. And so I kind of like Tulsa +3 in this situation.
In what Oregon State lost to Sam Houston State, but beat Washington State, that's a head scratcher, right? I mean, and there's nothing there with the Pac-12 champion, right? Even though they are in the Pac-12, if you win the Pac-12, you don't get to go to a bowl, do you?
Correct. No, there is no future for that. I mean, I guess, in theory, if somebody was 6-6 and Washington State can still get 6 wins, maybe there's a tie-in somewhere for them. But Oregon State's 2-8, and I don't see them going anywhere. Tulsa's 2-7. So like, these are two bad teams, and probably not a game you should wager on at all. But to me, like, the road trip is just like, what's your motivation? If you're Malik Murphy, who has, at one point lost his job this year, like, what is your motivation for a random road trip to Tulsa, Oklahoma? Like, I can't see it.
No, for sure. I mean, it's with Oregon State here. Washington State has a lot of them, but sometimes they benefit from it when they're the home team. Like, actually, Washington State this week, I know it's not on our list, but they host Louisiana Tech. I don't know if you've even looked at that game, but Louisiana Tech played Delaware last week on the road, and now they're playing Washington State on the road. It's over 3,000 miles of travel distance in like 6 days for Louisiana Tech. It's just kind of a wild situation with both of those teams still in the Pac-12. All right, next game up, we got Southern Miss at home hosting Texas State. This is 3:30 Eastern. Southern Miss either 3 and a hook or -4 at home, 65 being the total in Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
So it's not good for my GJ Kinney stock that I wanted to buy. They've lost 5 straight. Like, the bottom has dropped out on this team. They had 6 players suspended for a fight they had last week at the end of the Louisiana game. It includes a starting corner and a starting defensive end. So, like, I still like GJ Kinney. I think he's a great offensive mind. He's probably not getting a job this time around, but I still do believe in him. This team, I like Southern Miss in this game. I like Southern Miss a lot in this game because last year Texas State won this game 58-3. So Southern Miss is going to want to get revenge. Southern Miss needs this game for the Sun Belt West. They are in first place. They have not lost in Sun Belt play, but depending upon what Troy does tonight against ODU, like, Southern Miss is going to have to keep winning, and we will know what the margin of error is for Southern Miss after tonight, because if Troy loses, then their only path is Southern Miss loses their last couple games, including the game against Troy, the last game of the season. But like, I really like this Southern Miss team. I refer to them as the Marshall All-Stars because all the good Marshall players went there. Now, granted, Marshall found their own good players, but like, I like Southern Miss in this situation. Texas State losing 5 in a row. Players were suspended. Their defense is a little ravaged by the fact that they've gotten suspensions. So I like Southern Miss in this situation.
We got some Big 12 action up next, 3:30 Eastern in Lubbock. It is UCF at Texas Tech. Texas Tech -23.5 to as high as -24.5 as the home favorite, 48 and a hook being the total. UCF on the road here to Lubbock. Big point spread, though, on the Red Raiders, Matt.
Yeah, Texas Tech needs to win and win with style points. I mean, that's the thing we have to start looking at now. Now the committee's putting the rankings out. Texas Tech is 6th in the rankings. Arguably, you could have said that they could be ahead of Georgia. I know SEC fans are so mad at me now. They're like, how can you say anything bad about the SEC? But like, Texas Tech has had some really good wins this year. This kind of the committee showing disrespect towards that conference by putting Texas Tech at 6th when they could arguably be higher. So that to me means they want to score and score a lot. This is one of those things where we've talked about on the show, the inequality of the markets. The touchdowns are 4.5. Okay. So that means 5 touchdowns, 35 points. 35.5 is the team total for this game. Granted, it's only a point. I understand that. But if Texas Tech scores 35, you lose on the over on the 35.5, but you win on the over 4.5 touchdowns, presuming that they score 5 touchdowns. UCF, it's very interesting. Their head coach came out during the press conference earlier this week and said, quote, there are spots where, we're thin enough that we're having to borrow people for practice, end quote. So, like, he's had a lot of injuries. This is a UCF team that has struggled a lot in certain situations. They have not won a road game since 2024. This feels like, coming off the BYU game, a slow start for BYU or Texas Tech, maybe a hangover from that game. And then maybe in the second half, they start blowing UCF out because they know they have to get style points and they have to win this game large. So I think the team total comes into play here, but I would almost wait until after like the first quarter, potentially, when the game might be starting slow. And then Texas Tech pours it on and wins this game like 42-10, something like that.
Could see that. UCF is kind of a tricky team. I went to the game this past Friday against Houston. They were right there with them. To tell you the truth, if they got better quarterback play, they'd have a lot better record. They've just had really a tough time, hitting the wide receivers. And they made a quarterback switch towards the end of the game. But yeah,
Virginia Tech transfer, Davy Belfort.
Yeah, he looked pretty good. So that could be something to watch on the UCF side. But we'll move down the list, go to Oklahoma State hosting Kansas State. This is kicking us off on Saturday. It is -19 and a hook. That's Kansas State as the road favorite, 50 and a hook being the total in Stillwater.
So sometimes in handicapping, you throw out all the stuff surrounding a game and you kind of go off a feel. This is not this. If I did this, it wouldn't be a large bet. I kind of like Oklahoma State in this spot, plus the points. I kind of do. Both teams coming off a bye week. Chris Kleiman said on Monday during his media availability that this schedule has been so disjointed, it's thrown his team off. He said that, quote, I know when we played early in August, we had 3 bye weeks, but it's hard to get into a rhythm. They're coming off a bye week. Dylan Edwards, the running back, he's not playing. Gerald Bradley, I think the Texas Tech transfer, he's not playing. One of their best linebackers, Austin Romaine, is not playing. Now, I know I've said on this podcast that when you have bad teams, you fade them as much as possible, and Oklahoma State's terrible. My hunch is, and this is just a hunch, bye week, they come out, they're home, a Kansas State team that's a little wounded here. My lean here is Oklahoma State plus the points. And I kind of like the over because I think that even if Oklahoma State doesn't win this game and doesn't play as well, I think Kansas State will find a lot of offense. Avery Johnson's probably capable of scoring at least a couple touchdowns himself. But my thoughts here are Oklahoma State plus the points and the over, because I just think we're going to get one last Oklahoma State solid performance under center and the rest of the team. And then like the last couple weeks, they're going to be terrible and we're going to fade them.
Matt, we got Utah and Baylor up next. 6 o'clock local kick in Waco. It is Utah -7 and a hook across the board now. 60 being the total. This one might be a sleeper good one. Nighttime game here in Waco. Baylor catching 7 and a hook. I have the Bears circled. What's your feeling here, Utah and Baylor?
So if I remember correctly, the committee said Utah was either the first or second team out of the playoffs. So obviously, style points come into play here. Utah's defense is amazing. 14.2 points per game, 8th in the country. They give up the fewest passing yards in the conference. And what does Baylor want to do? Baylor wants to throw it. Baylor, I think, is going to struggle in this game. And we've talked about, I love Kyle Whittingham. Any sort of game where there has to be some sort of maneuvers or adjustments, I like him and his staff. I like Morgan Scalley, their defensive coordinator. I forget who the offensive. Jason Beck is their offensive coordinator. I love everything about Utah's staff here. Baylor's issue is going to be, are they going to be able to put pressure on the quarterback? They have 9 sacks on the season through 9 games. That is terrible, which means that the pocket is going to be clean for whoever the quarterback is for Utah. So, I mean, look, as I've talked about here, I'm not in the business of laying that many points on the road, but I will say this, Utah has to win this game and put up a decent margin if they get the opportunity to. So this one could be one of those close games, Drew, where you think your 8.5's good if you have Baylor or whatever the number is. And then all of a sudden Utah scores a late touchdown to take the cover here. So I think Utah wins, but I'm probably not going to play anything here.
We got SEC action up next from Oxford, Mississippi. Another night kick here, 6 o'clock local time with Ole Miss -2 touchdowns here. 14 at most shops. There's 14 and a hook out there. 54 being the total. Of course, it's Florida at Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin, kind of a big name, and there's reports that Florida would like to hire him, but they're 2 touchdown underdogs here. What are we thinking, Florida and Ole Miss?
I mean, look, I think I watched a lot of that Florida-Kentucky game last week. I think they're a team that's ready to go home. Like, I think this is a team that is kind of ready. Now, look, they still have, I believe, an opportunity. I'm looking now. They still have an opportunity for a bowl game, but like, are they going to be excited for a bowl game at 6-6? And they would have to win their last 3 games, and they play Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Florida State. So, like, I don't think of bowls in their future. And I don't think they'd be that excited for a 6-6 bowl game. There's a lot of injuries, especially in the wide receiving core. And Lane Kiffin's had his name out there. And one of the teams that's very interested, I'm sure, in Lane Kiffin is Florida. So, Drew, doesn't this feel like a Lane Kiffin special? Like, run it up, show Florida how good he is. That way, you add a couple zeros to my paycheck if you want me. This feels like an Ole Miss blowout. I think Florida pretty much last week showed us that they're done on the season. And I think Lane Kiffin wants to show the Gators, like, hey, you want to hire me? This is what I'm capable of and how much money you're going to have to owe me. I think Ole Miss wins this one in the blowout.
Do you think I'm starting to think Lane Kiffin just stays at Ole Miss? He kind of just likes this hype and he'll ride it a little bit, but I think he's got a pretty good gig going at Ole Miss. I actually don't think he goes anywhere. Do you?
I do find it funny that he said money won't drive his decision, and maybe it won't, but to come out and say that, I think is kind of ridiculous because money drives a lot of our decisions. But like, yeah, I think there is a small part of me that agrees with you that thinks like they are going to have Lane Kiffin next year as their head coach. So I do kind of agree, but it will be fascinating because literally everyone thinks that they're going to have him. At one point, one sports book had Lane Kiffin as the odds-on favorite to be the Giants head coach in the NFL, which I don't see him going to the NFL, but like he's going to get so much money and so many things thrown at him that it's going to be a fascinating offseason for Lane Kiffin.
It really is. And he's a unique one too, because his personal situation, he got divorced, the whole Joey Fishwater thing. I think he only gets like half the money he makes. The other half kind of gets siphoned to his ex-wife. I don't, have you ever heard that?
I have not. I don't read Entertainment Weekly or Entertainment Tonight or whatever. So I didn't know that, but I mean, he'll be a superstar, whatever campus he goes to. And I think he'd be a superstar. Well, maybe he wouldn't be a superstar in New York as a pro head coach. I definitely don't think he's a pro guy. I think he's going to stay in college forever, but like, he's going to have a lot of money thrown in his direction.
We got Mississippi State and Missouri up next, 7:45 Eastern kick here. It is Missouri -6 and a hook or -7, kind of a split line depending where you're shopping. 51 and a hook being the total. Mississippi State at Missouri up next here, Matt.
I mean, I've been kind of impressed by Mississippi State, but I also wonder, is there any hangover? Is there any residue from off of the game against Georgia? With the Egg Bowl coming up next. Now, granted, the Egg Bowl is in for 15 days, but like spot-wise, this doesn't feel like a great game for them. Now, granted, look, they went to Arkansas and won. They won at Southern Miss. They played all right at Florida. So this is a team that has played well on the road in the past. And then you've got a Missouri team. And look, you always have to look at spots in the SEC. They've lost 3 of their last 4. They're coming off the home loss to Texas A&M. They play at Oklahoma next week. I don't know. This feels like kind of a sleeper game here in terms of like, I think it's a decent game. I don't really have a great feel on this one. Do you have any lean in this situation?
Mississippi State is what I would go with if you I haven't bet this game, but catching 7s here. I agree with your opening statement. Mississippi State's kind of like riding a little bit under the radar. And as the Bulldogs are going off as the dog, that's the side I would go with. We got Tulane in the Big Easy hosting FAU. 63 and a half being the total, -17 and a hook. That's the Green Wave as the home favorite. You liking anything here with the Owls on the road in the Big Easy?
So the only thing that matters in this handicap for me, and something I'll be watching Saturday morning, Caden Veltkamp, the Western Kentucky quarterback, is limited in practice so far. He got hurt at the end of last week. Their backup quarterback is Zach Gibson, the Florida. No, he was at Georgia. He was at Georgia Tech, and then I think he was at Georgia State as well. The offense takes a downgrade. Like Florida Atlantic's offense or defense is not very good. And by the way, Tulane, another one of these teams that's going to need style points. They're either second or third in the G5 playoff race, I would say, especially coming off the road win at Memphis last week. So like Tulane is going to have to score some points in this contest. So I'll be watching what Caden Veltkamp's availability is, especially as we get closer. I'm not as 100% sure what the participation report number is, like when they do it in the AAC, but like Tulane's got to win and they've got to score some points in this one. So I'll be watching. I might look at the over here if Veltkamp is healthy.
Yeah, 63 and a half. Actually, there is a 63 flat out there. Anytime FAU is in the low 60s, I'm definitely not looking to bet them under for sure. It's the fastest offense in terms of tempo in the country. You bring up Tulane and their playoff hopes. Matt, you know the group of 5 is probably as good as anybody out there. Do you have any opinion on the team you would like to see get that get that G5 playoff bid, and who do you think it will be?
So I'm biased. I mean, I do a JMU show here, and I'm a JMU fan. So I'd like it to be JMU. And I think right now they're second. I think right now I have no problem with South Florida being the leader right now. South Florida has the win over Boise State and the win over Florida, although the worse Florida plays, the less that looks good, but it's still a road win in SEC country. And we know how much the committee and everybody loves the SEC, so that matters. But like, if South Florida doesn't win the AAC, I think JMU deserves it if they win out and they win the Sun Belt, because JMU's defense is a top 10 unit in the country. And they've done nothing but take care of business, and they have a close loss to Louisville as their only loss in the season potentially. So I think South Florida should be first. I think JMU should be second. I think Tulane should be third, only because they beat Memphis. Memphis probably would have been third. And then I have Memphis fourth, and I have North Texas fifth. Like, I will scream to the heavens if North Texas gets in over JMU. North Texas has beaten nobody. They have played a lot of close games themselves. Their non-conference schedule, for the most part, is a joke. So, like, I can accept almost anybody else getting in over JMU, but not North Texas.
All right, getting back to the games, we got South Carolina and Texas A&M. This is kicking us off on Saturday, 11 a.m. local time. It is minus 19. That is the Aggies as the home favorite, 48 and a hook being the total. The Gamecocks on the road against the Aggies, but this is a big number. I mean, asking them to win by 3 touchdowns. Do you like anything here in College Station?
So Texas A&M was third in the playoff in the bracket, so they have a 3 seed. I don't think that anything they can do would get them above Indiana or Ohio State. But still, they've got to win and win with some margin and everything and look good in this game. South Carolina coming off the bye week, looking a little healthier. They beat Texas A&M last year, so revenge is certainly on the Aggie side. This is a tough one, Drew. It's a large number, but I think it's a large number because Texas A&M has to win by a large number to keep looking good in the committee's eyes. And South Carolina has not exactly been playing good football. I think the bye week comes at a good time, though. I think that, this is an opportunity for South Carolina to get a little healthier, to play a little bit better. I'm not quite sure I have a lean in this game, Drew. Do you?
Yeah, South Carolina. I happen to think Texas A&M, a good team. They're deserving. I mean, the record says that, but I don't know, man. I don't think like laying big numbers with them will be like a profitable endeavor. So yeah, if you made me bet it, I would probably take the points with the Gamecocks. We got next one up, a rivalry here, Matt. The battle for the boot. Arkansas and LSU, 12:45 Eastern kick. It is -6. That is go Tigers as the home favorite, 57 being the total.
I can't bet on LSU. I can't. Coming off the loss to Alabama, they had their bump. That was supposed to be like the first game off of the Brian Kelly era. Like that was supposed to be it. And they lose the game at Alabama. It was somewhat close. Weeks, the linebacker, still questionable. Wide receiver Nick Anderson is out for LSU. Arkansas coming off a bye week. LSU with an Arkansas with an explosive quarterback and Taylon Green. The thing is, do I trust Arkansas to go into Death Valley and win that game or to keep it close? Like, I think if LSU's not focused, they certainly can, but LSU's the better team. Remember last week, Drew, we talked about Nussmeier, and I was like, this offense should be so much better. And then, of course, he gets taken out of the game, and they put the backup in, and we don't know who the quarterback is going to be for this week. So, like, there's just a lot of question marks surrounding LSU. So I would have ever the smallest lean to Arkansas. My problem is that their defense isn't good enough. And so, like, I don't know, slight lean to Arkansas in this situation. How about you?
Yeah, the same. I mean, I've kind of gotten to the point with some of these teams, particularly in the SEC, like LSU, maybe even Florida, where these quarterbacks with like a big name like Nussmeier or they just haven't played that well. So when they get taken out and, he had a little like temper tantrum on the sideline, there was a reason. And people got after Brian Kelly. But when you're not moving the ball and it's just like you're a highly recruited quarterback, sometimes it's not that bad of a thing, to put somebody else in. Maybe you get a spark offensively. And I was thinking the same thing for DJ Lagway. Everybody poured on fire Billy Napier. And it's like, well, you get this quarterback that's supposedly highly recruited and it's just not happening on the field. So what do you want to happen other than fire the coach. But yeah, if you made me pick this one, I'd be taking the points with Arkansas. We got 3:30 Eastern for the next one. It is South Alabama at UL Monroe. We are seeing the Jaguars -4, -4.5 as the road favorite. 48 and a hook being the total. USA at ULM. Next up, Matt.
This one's probably a pass of a game. Neither team's making a bowl game, most likely. ULM is 3-6. South Alabama is 2-7. They're both coming off their bye weeks. I don't want to guess what both these teams are going to look like, considering they both have tough stretches at the end. So neither of them are going to make a bowl game. So like the best part is we talk about all the games, but you don't have to bet every game. This one, I don't see an edge in either direction. South Alabama is probably the better team. They have the worst record. ULM is home. Neither of them have shown very much the last couple weeks, and coming off the bye, I just don't want to guess who's ready for this game. So this one was an easy pass for me.
We got 2 games left for this segment, guys. We'll bring in Robbie Vino and finish off the Week 12 card. This is every game on the board, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, every game on the board. He is Mid-Major Matt, at Mid-Major Matt. Matt Josephs from ESPN Richmond. We'll try to get a best bet out of him, but just 2 games left here. And this next one, this might be the highest scoring game of the weekend. It is North Texas and UAB. We are seeing Alabama Birmingham catching 17.5. So what the Mean Green laying a big number here, -17 and a hook, 69.5 being the total, Matt. Likely not to be a whole lot of stops and a lot of plays ran. What are you thinking here in Birmingham, Alabama?
I think North Texas has to have style points. I think they saw the committee stuff and they're like, well, wait a second. We're 8-1. We're 4-1, even though they haven't beaten anybody really. But like this is a situation. And look, this is a UAB team that gave up 53 at FAU. They gave up 56 to Tennessee. They gave up 42 to their SWAC opponent way back in week 1. So like North Texas's team totals 44.5. That's probably not high enough. I think North Texas is going to have to score. They're coming off a bye week, so they're fresher. They have a linebacker who's out for the season, potentially. He's got an injury. Their defense isn't good enough as it is, and, being without him. So I think UAB scores a bunch in this game, but like, I think North Texas has decided to isolate here in terms of the team total. Like, they have to do style points and show the committee that, like, they need to be moving up. We don't know where they are in the order of all the G5 teams, but the one thing we do know is they're not number 1, so they have to play better, and it starts Saturday against UAB.
All right, Matt, last game for this segment. Maryland and Illinois. Illinois -14 and a hook, 52 and a hook being the total.
I mean, we talked about it last week. Maryland went up against one of the worst defenses in the recent history of college football in Rutgers, and they scored 20 points. You have 35 to Rutgers. They lost the game. They were generally uncompetitive. I know they got a freshman quarterback, but remember, like, depending upon what type of high school he went to or what, in terms of were they good or were they bad, like, we're heading towards the end of the high school season, Drew. So, like, does he still have the same energy? Like, is he still the same quarterback he was at the start of the season? I don't know. And you've got an Illinois team coming off their bye week. I'm sure Brett Bielema probably got into him a lot during the bye week. It's an Illinois team that is 6-3. They're probably not going to win anything in the conference, but like, they're a good team. They're a good offense. So I think Illinois wins this game rather easily because I just don't know where Maryland's at after just ton of bad games for them so far. By the way, there's also a lot of wind in this game. So like, the better running team will probably do better in this game. And Maryland's running game is non-existent other than last week. So I like Illinois to just kind of name their score in this situation.
And Matt, the next game is Michigan and Northwestern, not on our slate, but did you see it's at Wrigley Field?
That's awesome. I like that.
Yeah, that one will be a fun one to watch, and we'll hit that with Robbie Vino. But Matt, do you have a best bet for the people?
All right. So my best bet for this group, because I'll stay in this group, there's going to be a couple things potentially I play here. I think you told me there's a 3, so I think I'm going to take Tulsa +3 against Oregon State. And I want to sprinkle a little on the money line. Oregon State flying to Oklahoma after losing to a winless team, no bowl game, no anything else. You're playing an independent schedule. You got a bye next week. I think Oregon State, if they show up at all, that would be very surprising. So give me Tulsa +3 with a sprinkle on the money line for them to win outright.
All right, Tulsa +3. It is -115 at DraftKings. For Mid-Major Matt's best bet. Matt, great stuff as always, man. You want to throw anything else out before we shut this down?
No, this is in terms of the handicapping, like this is an opportunity now that you put teams in certain categories, like, you know, the teams that still have a chance for a bowl and seem happy to make a bowl, the teams that have no bowl in their future and seem to be ready to end their season. And then obviously the style points teams that are either in the playoffs or just outside the playoffs. So like, make sure to pay attention to like the press clippings for the week and see where some of these teams are at. You'll get an idea from some of the players talk about their games coming up as to whether or not they're ready for the game, they're motivated for the game, and if they're motivated to pour it on their opponent because they have to help out their standing or their resume.
Good points, Matt. And follow him on Twitter at Mid-Major Matt. He obviously knows his college football, knows college basketball as well. What else do you have going on, Matt, besides every game on the board on Thursdays?
So I'm on the Prop Queen podcast on Fridays and Mondays with Ariel Epstein, doing all sorts of college football, college basketball, NFL stuff. And then, of course, the radio show here in Richmond from 3 to 4 Eastern time. And then my JMU show, which is Wednesdays at 6 o'clock, where we talk all things JMU athletics, basketball, football, that fun stuff.
So is JMU football, what they're able to do, is that taking like the headlines, man, and everybody talking about it in your area?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of JMU fans in this area. And they're very excited. And of course, they're arguing with the AAC folks. And they've got an interesting game. You know, App State's not very good, but App State has dominated JMU the past couple of years. Remember, 2 years ago, College Game Day came to Harrisonburg and App State beat them that week. And then last year, App State fans threw snowballs at JMU and it was very disappointing. And then they had a lead in that game and they blew the lead and App State won again. So like, there's a lot of frustrations that JMU is going to have to get out and they're going to need style points. This is a team that has to score and score often to look good in the committee's eyes if they hope to overtake USF, who has Navy this weekend. So like, I think JMU is a team that you need to pay attention to, and maybe there's some value on them making the playoffs, depending upon your sports book.
I think JMU blows them out. This App State team has not played very well. They've lost like 3 straight games. This isn't the same App State team as a couple years ago. Is it, in your opinion?
So it's not, but last year's wasn't great either, and JMU lost to him in North Carolina. And I think JMU should beat them. I mean, the spread tells you that they should. They're 3-touchdown favorites. And next week will be the ultimate test for JMU because they host Washington State next week. And that's the random non-conference game at the end of the year that has nothing to do with anything other than your resume. Like, what's their motivation going to be and how good do they look in that game? But like, yeah, they should destroy App State on Saturday. Problem is that in the past, they've had bad App State teams beat them. So we'll see what happens. You know, talking to the players, though, they're really motivated for this game on Saturday.
All right. He's Matt Josephs, ESPN Richmond at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter. Go give him a follow. Guys, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back with Robbie Vino finishing off every game on the board. Thanks for tuning in. Cash those tickets.